In this video, I spent 100 days in Minecraft Pixelmon. Today we're taking our regular Minecraft world and combining it with our favorite childhood game. My plan is to complete 10% of the Pokédex, defeat all 8 Pixelmon gyms, and collect all the plates to summon and catch Arceus, the god of all Pokemon. Now as we chose our starter, we jumped back into our old spawn and gave Mudkip a breath of fresh air. That is safe for a Mudkip, right? Anyway, after I RTP out of spawn, I fought this Swinub who was twice my level and won by the skin of my teeth. I then found an apricorn tree and got some red apricorns. I'll be able to make some Pokeballs with these, which will help me complete the dex. I also encountered this Grievard and caught it. Just because it passed on to the other side doesn't mean I'll pass up the option to have it on my team. I've got 2 members now on the spicy crew, but I'm gonna need a lot more recruits if I want to do this challenge. To do that, I'll need more apricorns of different colors so I can craft different kinds of Pokeballs. It's a mystery how these trees can grow on snow, but I won't question whatever helps get more balls in my pockets. While exploring snow, and more snow, a message appeared saying that a glacier had spawned in a snowy tundra biome. Legendaries are extremely hard to find, so I made sure to make the most of this moment and eventually found the glacier. I obviously can't catch him, but I'm sure you guys would find a way. By the way, if you like seeing legendaries like these, you can join the server using my 30-second tutorial down below, or by using the IP on the screen. Now after that devastating loss, I figured I needed a breath of fresh air and went to a warmer biome. As the sun went down, I gathered some wood, which I will be using later to make a temporary base to spend the night in. I found a nice flat spot where I decided to make my beautiful house. I turned on the chunk borders claiming this specific chunk and started building my masterpiece. And just like that, another historical build for the server was made. People make fun of my builds, but I doubt you can do better. After setting up my home, I came across this pillager outpost. But before I had the chance to pillage the pillagers, a message appeared saying that a legendary boss Beedrill spawned near me. So I went to check it out, and it was massive. Personally, I think it'd be really cool if bees were this big IRL. I tried battling the boss, but it was a very pathetic attempt. Needless to say, it was a quick loss. So I went to the pillager outpost and found a blank plate. Now I just need 17 more of these, and I'll be able to get that Arceus. Don't know why pillagers leave items that they pillage, but it brings me one step closer to my goal. I went back home and put the blank plate in a very secure chest inside my very spacious and heavily guarded wooden shack. After that, I started planting different colored apricorns. Best thing about this is that it's so much cheaper than buying Pokeballs in the shop. As if getting plants near my house weren't enough, I had to get one for my team as well, so I captured this Bellsprout. It looks just like a pea shooter from Plants vs. Zombies if anyone still plays that game. As if that wasn't enough, I encountered a Smoliv and added another plant to my team the next day. I'm glad I'm slowly becoming one with nature. So now our team consists of Mudkip, Grievard, Bellsprout, and Smoliv. Not the most terrifying bunch, but within time, they will be. Before night fell, I saw this wormhole above me, so I tried building up to it with some sand. But as soon as I got near, it disappeared. While there was still some time left within the day, I decided to design the landscape of the house by planting some sugar canes near this pond and making it look nice. Then I picked some apricorns and replanted them so I could get more. I also had the time to mine out some iron and complete one of my daily quests. My other quests included mining diamonds and defeating NPCs. Daily quests are a new feature in the server that allows you to get quest points whenever you complete a daily quest. With quest points, you can get Ultra Balls, rare candies, a Master Ball, Summer Wings, and even a custom Pokemon. My goal is to get a Master Ball from the quest shop for now. I went deeper into the caves and got some ores like rubies, sapphires, irons, and such. Then I used some of the iron to make a hammer. Although it doesn't break ores well, it does a good job of clearing stone blocks. It wasn't long after that I got some diamonds and managed to complete another of my daily quests. After getting some more diamonds and platinum, I used some of the sapphires I had and got myself a new fit. And I have to say, blue doesn't look bad on me. I got back home the next day and redecorated my house a bit, made some Pokeballs, and caught a Floatzel with my newly crafted balls. I also came across this giant Kyogre. I also saw a water tower and ran through it, trying to avoid as many battles as possible. When I reached the top, I checked the chests and found a splash plate inside. I made a quick getaway by jumping outside the window and landing in the water. Before the day ended, I also got to catch this Watchog. In just 3 days, I already have my team filled up. For the next few days, my team and I killed so many Pokemon to the point where the streets became emptier than my wallet. Thanks to that, my Mudkip evolved into Marshtomp. I can assure you he has no regrets putting Magmar into its grave. The next day I went back to spawn to open up some crates. I got 2 plushie spinners and got Ampharos and Horsey. Then with my rank up key, I got a legendary crate key. So I wasted no time and used that key to get the most disappointing thing that I could have gotten. I went home after that to place down my Horsey and Ampharos plushies so they can guard my house. The next day, after I got some vote keys, I got some dust balls, some money, and some rare candies. So with the money I got from the crate, I bought a lot of Pokeballs from the shop and went to the desert. It was there that I encountered a pink Diglett, which I instantly captured faster than it can burrow its head under. After that, I checked my daily quests, fish up 3 Pokemon, defeat 5 players, and craft 1 white healer. After that, I ran around the desert and mixed the ashes of the Pokemon my team killed with the desert sand. Then I also caught a Krabby nearby that was fairly high level. I spent the whole day progressing towards my Pokédex goal. I captured a Torkoal, an Aeron, a Charcadet, and a Varoom. I was curious to see what Charcadet evolved into, so I used /wiki and saw that I can evolve him in 2 ways. I'll probably catch another one just to see both evolutions. The next day, I caught a Salandit and a Bagon. Bagon was a great catch since its evolution is one of the best pseudo-legendaries. I kept on catching Pokemon until day 11, when the last Pokemon I caught was this Turtonator, which I did not expect to find here at all. After walking for ages, I decided to give my team a breather and release them from their Pokeballs. What I have right now is pretty solid, but what I really want is a fossil Pokemon. To find fossils, I'll have to jump into the ocean and find them on the seafloor, which can be quite time consuming. As I swam in the waters trying to find them, I was quickly surprised by a huge town in the middle of the ocean. I immediately went inside the houses and started looting. I ended up finding a Pokebag that allows me to store items in it. This will be extremely useful since my inventory is almost always full. I also found a camera in one of the chests, so I called out Marshtomp and asked him to pose for some photos. Then I used /hat and decided to put him on my head. This feature applies to any Pokemon, which makes it one of the best features in the game. Now I continued to wander around and found a huge temple in the middle, which I assumed was the gym. I held my nose, went inside, and suddenly came across this huge spider looking to fight. It knocked out Marshtomp instantly, so I knew I had to use my secret technique, which was to flee the battle as fast as I could. I went inside the shack and was amazed by the details of the structure. Not to mention the random minecart placed inside. Then I went outside and found treasure inside the chests. Obviously, I didn't take any treasure as I am a good, law-abiding citizen who will occasionally enter people's homes. Now I found a Clauncher that suddenly appeared and I ended up challenging it. I was excited to have lobster for dinner, but then I remembered my goal and decided to catch it instead. After that, I went inside this building and saw this huge Lugia statue. It was finally time to go, so I jumped into the ocean and went back to finding fossils. I eventually found my first fossil, but almost drowned while trying to get it. I didn't find that many, but I was satisfied with what I had. After putting those fossils away, I went back to the water to find some more and couldn't believe just how many fish were in the ocean. This village looked really cool, so I thought I might as well fight it and catch it. I'm glad all these Pokemon were here for me to catch, since it just makes completing the dex even easier. Now the best thing I found here had to be this Lapras. I threw multiple Pokeballs at it, but he resisted each one. He eventually gave in though, and I finally captured him. After mining up just a few more fossils, I had enough of the water and decided to go back up. When I got back on land, I then encountered a Larvesta. I threw tons of Pokeballs at it as well, and after multiple attempts, I managed to catch it too. There was also this cool looking Espathra and a purple boss nearby. I knew I had to challenge these Pokemon to test out the team's might. In order to go against this Pokemon, I brought out all my water types into my party and went against this behemoth. However, the Camerupt was too strong and it managed to wipe my team. I attempted to go against it a second time and managed to get some damage in, but ultimately got defeated again. I attempted yet again and finally managed to bring down Camerupt. After taking down that overgrown mountain goat, I received a keystone. After that, I was surprised to find a Gibble, another pseudo-legendary, so I made sure to go after it and captured it after a few attempts. After fighting all these Pokemon, it was now time to go back to my mission of getting my fossil Pokemon. In order to do that, I'm going to need a few things. I first made a diamond pickaxe so that I could mine some obsidian, which I'll need later. While in the caves, I mined some rubies as well and crafted some magma armor. I personally think this looks better than the last one. After the caves, I made my way to the desert and collected some sand for glass while saying hi to a Dunsparce. I then went back home to smelt some glass. Once that was done, I gathered all the materials I needed to build a few machines. I went ahead and built a tank, a machine display, the machine top, and the machine base. After building those components, I then made a fossil cleaner as well as a fossil display case. Once that was done, I then combined all the parts to finally craft the fossil machine. Now I just need a place to put this and we should be good to go. I honestly did not have the space, so I expanded my home a little to fit them in. As soon as I put the fossil in the cleaner, a legendary boss spawned on me. I was able to fight the last boss since it was very weak to water, but I doubt I can beat this guy. Once I train my team though, I'll be able to beat him and get all those juicy rewards. After harvesting some apricorns, I took my fossil and put it in the machine, while I put another one in the cleaner. As I waited for that, I started to craft some dusk balls, which are going to be really useful when catching Pokemon at night. After waiting for a couple of minutes, my fossil had finally revived and I got an Arctozolt. He's got a very interesting typing and I feel like he's going to be really useful on the team. Now that I have him, I think I have my full roster now, unless I'm lucky enough to find some legendaries, that is. After some time, I went back to the cave and decided to finally build a nether portal. Once I built the portal, I immediately lit it up and went inside. I found myself in a rather safe nether spawn point, so I decided to go seek out danger and went above. I'm hoping to find a couple fortresses since they have some incredible loot. I found this Magmar and immediately tried to capture it. It had struggled a bit, but unfortunately I killed it. Later, I found this broken down nether portal. Beside the portal were these little poniards, and of course, I captured them. As I ventured deeper into hell, I finally found the nether fortress. Luckily for me, there's no mobs in this mod, so I'm able to safely explore it. Finding loot in this place was hard though, but I did find a chest that had a flame plate, which brings us one step closer to summoning Arceus. Shortly after, I also found a spooky plate. Just from this fortress alone, I managed to find 2 plates. As I traveled across a new biome, I saw smoke coming from afar. I had found the fire village, and I assumed the fire gym was also here. So as an unknown traveler coming from a distant land, there was only one thing left to do: commit larceny and steal their stuff for my benefit. There was lots of useful and interesting stuff that I collected in this village. The best thing was probably the netherite scraps, which I had no idea you could find here. I also found wither skulls just laying around, so I made sure to collect those as well, in case one day I decide I want to fight the wither. Now as I entered this one home, I actually found the auspicious armor, which is just what I need to evolve Charcadet. Hopefully I'll find the other armor in one of these villages. Before I did that though, I decided to go open up my crate with my rank up key. The crate spin gave me a Jolteon and Sneasler plushie. Now we have 4 plushies that guard our base. I then went back to the nether and found another town worth terrorizing. After I accidentally set this guy's place on fire, as well as his body on fire, I continued exploring the place and found lots of cool buildings. After entering this castle, I was immediately greeted by a Golurk and wasn't ready at all. Running from the Golurk took a lot from me. And it didn't help that there's a lady stalking me and following my every move. I managed to lose her by hiding in one of the houses and ended up finding the malicious armor as well as an efficiency 5 diamond pickaxe. That was an amazing find, and now that I have both armors, I can now use them to evolve my Charcadets. I used the auspicious armor to evolve him into Armarouge, and I used the malicious armor to evolve him into Ceruledge. These Pokemon look like absolute units, and I can't wait for them to get stronger. They even look cool when they run, and it honestly can't get better than this. In the following day, I opened up some vote crates and got some Pokebuilder tokens. The Pokebuilder is great since it can help buff up our team's stats and change how they look. Now when I got home, I started selling some items. I'm glad I made sure to find as many skulls as possible since they're worth a lot. I always try to sell items when I can since I'm going to buy something extremely expensive in the future. Now with the aluminum I bought from the shop, I decided to craft my very own PC. It was kind of a waste of money since I won't use it, but I thought I'd just make it anyway. Then with the leftover ingots I had, I crafted a trade machine and a healer, which was one of my daily quests. Before the day ended, I bought some crystals and some silicon to make the galactic armor set. Can't say that I'm the biggest fan of this armor, so I made the plasma armor after, and I think I like this one a lot more. The next day, I put down my trade machine, PC, and white healer, and then gave the shack a bit of redecorating. Took me a while, but you can't rush art. Once that was done, I made an enchantment table and a blast furnace to smelt my ancient debris. I also made some bookshelves and built a small area outside my home where I could enchant my tools. I also put my fossil machine to use by putting my covered fossil inside, which we'll get back to later. With my blocky fingers, I did the impossible and turned my diamond tools into netherite ones. Then I enchanted the first tool and the only tool at the time that should be enchanted, my netherite shovel. As I waited for my fossil to finish up, I ended up catching a Kadabra and a Meowth near my home. Then I checked up on my fossil machine and saw it finally finish reviving my Aerodactyl. This is by far the coolest fossil Pokemon and one of my all-time favorites. After that, I then went to the desert and dug only a tiny amount of sand. Now you might be asking why I'm wasting my time doing this, and I'll explain in a bit. My shovel was about to break, so I combined it with my mending shovel I found in the nether and went back to dig up more sand. I didn't stop until my entire inventory was filled with sand and sand alone. Once I was done cooking all of the sand, I now had a full inventory of glass which I could sell in the shop for about $14,000. While I was thinking about what to do with my riches, I came across this shiny Ponyta. This was my first shiny in the playthrough, so I wasn't going to mess this up. Once I caught it, I marveled at its beauty from a safe distance so I wouldn't get burned by its flames. The next morning, I started off by doing my dailies and fished up some Pokemon. The Magikarp was so weak, I caught it on the first try. I then mined some diamonds and had a total of 80 quest points. I had enough to buy the Master Ball, and I couldn't wait to use it on the next Magikarp I find. I later found myself in the desert and came across Geodude flexing his biceps on me. After that, I battled wild Pokemon to fill up the dex and saw that I've completed about 5%. I also found out that you can do this in the dex, which is pretty interesting. While I was here, I found a walking volcano and decided to take a stab at it. I brought out my water types in hopes of splashing this behemoth away. I also had my Bagon, and my strategy here was to paralyze them first with Dragon Breath. The Camerupt wiped the floor with my Pokemon, but good thing I gave my team Focus Sashes that left them at 1 HP, allowing us to get some hits in. I defeated Camerupt and felt a sigh of relief, knowing that we had an ace up our sleeve. After that, I continued catching Pokemon and struggled a bit against this Magmar, but I managed to get the win in the end. While fighting against this Dugtrio, Marshtomp started glowing and had finally evolved into the best Pokemon to ever exist, Swampert. I took Swampert for a ride and saw how fast he went. Now that we have him, our combat power has significantly increased. I'm glad that he's getting levels, but I need to focus on getting the rest of my team levels as well. An EXP all would be amazing right now. I plan on getting Swampert's Megastone, and for that boss, I'm going to need all the grass types I can get. As I was catching the Skiddo, a message appeared saying a Glastrier had spawned. I found him within seconds, and he looked so majestic. I wasn't able to catch him the first time, but this time, I have a Master Ball. And with that, I've now caught my first legendary in this playthrough. I can't wait to use him in battles, and I think I'm also going to travel around with him a lot. Now I went back to the forests to try and find more grass types, and I ended up finding the best one. Except, this one was actually a boss. The level 100 Venusaur knocked out Glastrier in one hit, so I had to bring out some fire types for this one. I made sure to burn it with Will-O-Wisp and then proceeded to bombard it with fire attacks. Venusaur was very tanky, but luckily, Torkoal dealt huge damage and Larvesta came in clutch and managed to defeat the boss. The next day, I gave Smoliv a rare candy, and she started evolving into a Dolliv. The name fits perfectly since she looks like a doll with 2 olives on her head. After that, I headed to the swamp to go look for that Swampert boss, and if I want to find him, I'm gonna have to stay here for a while. After some time, he finally spawned, and his arms were big enough to use my Pokemon as dumbbells. He was also an ultimate boss, which is the strongest boss type, so I'm gonna need to prepare for this. Using my rare candies, I evolved Sewaddle into Swadloon. I also evolved Cacnea into Cacturne, Skiddo into Go-Goat, and Weepinbell into Victreebel. I also realized that by doing this, I had completed about 7% of the dex now. Now when I tried taking on the Swampert, I used my grassy terrain first to boost up the moves of my team. I felt confident since grass moves are really effective against this guy, but they barely did anything. I only got him down to 32% HP, and I felt like this battle was impossible. I had no choice but to use the rest of my candies to evolve my other Cacnea into Cacturne. I challenged Swampert once again and was doing a lot better in this fight. I managed to get him down to 1.7% HP, which was a massive improvement. I felt like I just needed a few more levels, and since I'm near water, the swamp was the perfect place to train. I challenged Swampert once again and was hoping for the win. My Dolliv now knew Seed Bomb, which didn't do a lot, but did much more than before. I then got him to the yellow and still had 3 Pokemon left. I didn't think I could do it, but I finally beat him. Not only did I get his Mega Stone, but I also got an EXP All, which is just what I need. I right-clicked the EXP All, and now my team will all get experience from battles. Now that we have his Mega Stone, there's only one thing left to do. Swampert went Super Saiyan and Mega Evolved in front of Skuntank. But as I was doing that, a legendary Zamazenta spawned near me. After catching the Skuntank, I looked around me and quickly found this legendary beast. I already used my Master Ball for Glastrier, and I didn't have enough quest points for another one. However, he's actually slightly easier to catch than other legendaries, so I guess I'll give it a go. I took the risk of burning it with Will-O-Wisp, but I didn't regret it since I did end up catching him with a Dusk Ball. We may have caught the Zamazenta, but we're not done yet. An epic boss was around the corner, and I knew I was more than capable of challenging it. I figured I might as well use the Big Bad Wolf for this and see what he can do. I finished him off with Swampert, and I was happy to get his Mega Stone as well. To start the day off, I went to spawn and used my rank up keys for some spins. I managed to get a shiny spinner, which got us a shiny Illumise. After taking a look at this cute little bee, I then sent out my team to take a look at them as well. Unless I get another legendary, I think this is going to be my final squad for the rest of the video. After catching Farfetch'd and filling up more of my decks, I then opened up the vote crates again, which gave me another thing to fill up as well. I got an orb, which I can use to summon one of the legendary birds. I already have a cool ice type, so I don't need Articuno, and I have a cool fire type, so I don't need Moltres. Which means I must get a Zapdos and replace this electric bird for a better one. I went into the shop and bought a Thunderstone and combined them together to make the Orb of Static Souls. After defeating 375 Pokemon, the orb will fill up and then I'd have to find the Zapdos shrine to summon him. 375 Pokemon is a lot though, but I'll try my best. While I was training in the savannah, I found another portal in the sky. I built a tower of dirt, and after almost falling to my death multiple times, I jumped right into it. I found myself in Ultra Space and was excited to explore it in zero gravity. Close to where I spawned, I found a raid den nearby. I entered the battle with my strongest Pokemon since I had no idea how strong he was. The other Pokemon in this raid were pretty useless and kept dying, but luckily, my wolf defeated him, and I was able to get some great rewards. I got a netherite scrap, a large EXP candy, and the best reward, which was catching him. This is by far the coolest Pokemon I've seen yet, and I can't wait to see what else I can find here. I found another 4-star raid, and my raid team definitely looked a lot stronger than the last one. This Gigalith wasn't hard to beat, and I greatly appreciated the diamond he gave me. I wasn't able to catch him, but I'm sure I'll find another one. I Mega Evolved my Swampert to take on this level 80 Boldore. The high level Pokemon is the reason why this is the best place to train. It's also a great place to catch rare Pokemon, like this Fennekin walking by. I lowered its HP into 4.2%, then started throwing Pokeballs. If I'm lucky enough, I might just be able to find all the starters here. I figured den raids would be a good way to train and get loot, so I went on a 4-star Drapion raid and demolished the raid. The dens gave me a lot of candies, so I decided to give them to our little Dolive, which then started evolving into this majestic Arboliva. The purple olives on his arms look great, and I think his design is one of the best of the new gen. Now when I saw this Gligar, I didn't pass the chance. However, it was a trap and there were 4 more Pokemon waiting to pounce. Battles like these are by far the best way to train, but I wish I had Earthquake so I could wipe them out much quicker. Later, I found what I thought were diamond blocks, but just so happened to be crystal blocks. It looks like we have a lot of resources here, and I wonder what else I can find. I eventually found a Quilava den and fought it to get more candy. While I was fighting it though, a message appeared saying a shiny Corvisquire spawned. I tried my best throwing my ball at it, but Corvisquire knew what I was up to. Once I finally got in battle, I burned him up a little and threw an Ultra Ball to catch him. I put him next to my other shiny in the PC and realized that I've caught a decent number of Pokemon so far. I decided to venture into a volcano and collected the treasure. My feet were burning, so I drilled a hole into it to escape. After that, I went into another biome and found an Ivysaur den. Once I defeated that, I found a Decidueye den as well. I was not kidding when I said I could find every starter here. After that was Centiskorch. I had 2 Tyrantrums in this raid, which was great since Rock beats Fire. The giant Eevee we had helped out as well. To top it all off, I ended up catching him too, but for some reason, I couldn't access this Pokeloot from the stone. I guess I'm not worthy enough. It's kind of a shame though, since I could have gotten a Beast Ball, which I could use to catch an Ultra Beast. They're extremely hard to find though, but it'd be awesome to have them on the team. The next biome I visited was the Ultra Deep Sea biome. I knew this biome would be great when I found this Dreadnought and Vaporeon. I guess they were in the middle of something, so as a polite stranger, I immediately threw a Pokeball at Vaporeon. After capturing Vaporeon, I didn't want to leave the Dreadnought behind, so I caught him too, adding yet another Pokemon to the dex. I caught a lot of cool Pokemon, but the best one by far had to be this level 100 Dracovish. He's insanely strong, and I would have added him to the roster if I didn't have Swampert. Later on, I challenged even more dens and found this colorful pile of mud. I also found a Walrus who pretends to be a samurai, and a pseudo-legendary who looks like an overgrown Charmander. A lot of these guys are hard to catch, but at least I'm getting some serious training in. Now the last biome I visited was the Ultra Plant biome. I'm pretty sure this place was mainly for electric types, but I think they also have a bunch of random Pokemon as well. Nonetheless, I was catching a bunch of them and was filling up the dex. Once I caught this Jolteon, I had finally accomplished my first goal of completing 10% of the Pokédex. I returned home after that and sold all the treasure I found from the raid dens. Once I sold the items, I went shopping for Pokemon moves to increase our team's firepower. I taught my Swampert Earthquake from the move relearner, and then taught him Waterfall, Ice Punch, and Stone Edge from the shop. I then proceeded to teach my other Pokemon moves, but I'll need a lot more money for the rest. Now, I would have the money to buy those moves, but I decided to go into the shop and spend thousands of dollars on Amethyst. I wanted a new set of armor, so I decided to make the Team Rocket gear. And I gotta say, this looks way better than the last one. After that, I went back to the Ultra Crater and started mining the iron blocks when something poisoned me. I really want those blocks, but I guess those blocks don't want me. There's a lot of resources here to mine, so I should really take advantage of them. I looked through the shop to see what items I should sell, and I saw that Pokeballs sell for a lot. The ball that sells for the most is the Heavy Ball at $320. But if I want to make Heavy Balls, I'm gonna need to find tons of blocks of silver. I went to this raid den nearby and fought a Charizard. Luckily, one Ultra Ball was enough to catch it too. I finally have a flying type now, which I can use to help me find the silver blocks. I did find another den nearby with Tyrantrum residing in it. After successfully defeating it, I hit another jackpot by catching it with only one Ultra Ball. Later on, I found a King Gambit den and battled it throughout the night. When we finally defeated it, I figured that a Dusk Ball might work better since it was nighttime, and sure enough, I got my third den Pokemon of the day. Before the day ended, I gave some midnight snacks to Ceruledge, and I hope Armarouge doesn't find out. After searching far and wide, I finally found the silver, but I can't mine it without getting poisoned. So, I came up with a plan, and headed to the overworld. My plan was to get tons of milk buckets, but I don't think this guy would let me milk him. So I found this milk tank instead and made an iron bucket to milk it. But the problem is, I can only get milk so many times per day, so this is going to be a slow process. While I'm doing that, I notice that my inventory keeps filling up, and I could really use some shulker boxes. I can get shulker shells from shuckles, but they can be pretty rare. So I decided to build a platform in the ultra deep sea so that they could spawn more. The platform's coming along quite nicely, and there's even a few Pokemon that have spawned here. There was even a level 80 Kabutops, which is probably the coolest thing here. After patching up the last holes, the platform was finally complete. I tried fighting some of the Pokemon here, but some of them have formed teams of their own. But not all of them were team battles. Some of them were alone, like the Shuckle I encountered near the edge of the platform. I also faced off against the Caracosta, who was really easy to catch despite being level 100. After that, I found yet another Shuckle who fainted easily and even gave me 2 Shulker shells. With that, I was finally able to make my first Shulker box. When night came, I saw the Zweilous and wanted to capture him, but it was a team battle, so I had no choice but to knock everyone out. That Zweilous may have baited me, but this dino didn't. So after knocking its HP down a little, I used a Dust Ball to catch him too, along with the Shuckle. Then I kept on defeating other wild Pokemon until the sun came up. The best thing about building a platform is that it's a quick way to grind XP while also finding unique and rare Pokemon you wouldn't normally encounter in the wild. Like this Meryl for example, who's got quite the interesting texture to say the least. Now that I have all my milk buckets, I went ahead and did a level 30 enchant on my pickaxe and got the best enchants possible. I then harvested as many blue apricorns as I could and cooked them up in the furnace. Now as I mined a few blocks from the silver deposit, I noticed I wasn't getting poisoned. So apparently, every other resource I mined gets me poisoned except for silver blocks. I have no idea why that is, but it doesn't mean that I squeezed the life out of Miltank for nothing. I ended up finding some bone blocks which were definitely poisonous. I depleted my milk pretty quickly while doing this, but I'm just glad I got to use it. I'll need the bone meal to plant as many trees as I can because I'm going to need a lot of lids. All I need to do is plant the apricorn, smack it a few times with the bone meal, and boom, I have a tree filled with them. After doing all that, the time was now to get rich and make some heavy balls. I crafted enough to have a whole inventory, and once they were sold, I made around $700,000. I could do this process again and again and probably make millions on the server. And the best part is, it wouldn't take long at all. Now the next day, I completed the fishing quest again, which gave me enough points to buy another Master Ball. I'm thinking about catching Arceus with it, but before I even get to that point, I want to train my team first, which is why I decided to take on the Battle Tower. Let's just hope I make it out of here alive. By fighting these trainers, I can get tons of rare candy and tokens which I can use to change my Pokemon's levels. I Mega Evolved my Swampert and took out the first 2, but this guy's Nidoking just demolished him. Glacier was able to get vengeance, but stood no chance against these flames. I was already down to 2 Pokemon, so I took this battle seriously and brought out the big boy. Zamazenta did his thing and swept the rest of them. I then got my rewards, and for being such a good boy, I decided to give him a treat. He ended up learning close combat, which is probably the best fighting move ever. For the second battle, I was up against a giant plant, and he chewed up my bird within seconds. Thankfully, my horse was able to stop this madness, and with that, my Cerulege learned his signature move. My horse went mad himself and took out 3 more Pokemon after constant switch outs from the enemy. He did fall to the Sudowoodo, but thankfully Swampert stepped up and showed us why he's the GOAT. Mothim couldn't switch out anymore, and Swampert finished him with one last Ice Punch. For the final battle on the first floor, I decided to play it safe and use Zamazenta to take out his team. It really was a stroke of luck to find him in that forest that day. I don't know what I'd do without him. After that, I went to the next floor and used the Poke Builder to make Swampert level 81. It costs 1 token to change 1 level, which is a pretty good deal. The Pokemon on each floor just get stronger and stronger, so I have to play it smart and raise my team's levels as well. I also only have 1 shot per trainer, which makes the stakes even higher. Now this battle was going well, and I was sure that Zamazenta could do this solo, until Durant came out and used Superpower while surviving on a fraction of HP. How did Durant even learn that? Swampert had to enter the fray and take out her remaining Pokemon. I was able to get double the rewards this time, and I gave the candies to Glacier because of Zamazenta's humiliating defeat. I still can't believe a wolf got squished by a bug. Now the next battle was going pretty well until I faced off against this Rotom. Swampert did the best he could, but this washing machine was way too strong. Zamazenta redeemed himself by killing it, but he later ran into a lot of trouble with his Toxapex. This was by far the most annoying battle I've had in this video, since this guy had so much defense and kept using Recover. I think he ran out of those though, which is the only reason I was able to beat it. Once I got rid of him, the rest of the battle was pretty easy. Now this last fight on this floor showed me just how powerful Swampert really is. He one-shot Pokemon left and right without having any HP. Arboliva helped out as well while Zamazenta cleaned up and cleared the floor. I leveled up a lot in that fight and got a rank up key which gave me $50,000. It was about time I got something good since all my other spins were trash. Now with that money, I decided I was going to go teach my Pokemon some new moves. The next floor is going to be quite hard, so I need to make sure my team is ready. I went to the move relearner to teach Cerulege Psycho Cut. I also bought Phantom Force and Close Combat from the store to teach him as well. All the Pokemon on this floor were level 80, so I had to be careful. Swampert took the dragon out with ease, but got obliterated by a lawnmower. Thankfully, Cerulege was strong enough to take care of that, as well as this Tyranitar. This guy had a bunch of pseudo-legendaries on his team, but I had actual legendaries on mine. Once I took out this Garchomp, it was now time to take on the final floor. Before that, I opened up another plushie spinner from the crate and got an Iron Valiant. When I placed him down, he looked a bit out of place, but I guess Paradox Pokemon are still settling in our dimension. Before I continued on, I used my tokens to get Arboliva and Swampert to level 100, and I took my candy from my home to get my legendaries up there as well. I also went to the move relearner to teach Arctozolt Boltbeak and Stone Edge from the TR shop. After that, I went back to the battle tower and had my first fight with a level 100 Corviknight. This guy was really strong, and Swampert barely managed to bring him down. I then brought out Arboliva against the Centellion, and it looked like I killed him, but his HP swung right back up. Arboliva did take him down, but was killed shortly after. Arctozolt came into play and wiped the floor with his Primarina, but then got one-shot by Chandelure. My legendaries did a lot in the previous fights, so I thought I'd let Cerulege take the reins. Colossal was no match, but this Lapras was. Cerulege was able to hang on though, and I got 100 tokens from the fight. Now the battle was with Santa Claus, and I knew I couldn't lose this one. However, his first Pokemon was actually a legendary, which I did not expect at all. He was slight work for Swampert though, and took him down along with this Arcanine. As soon as he brought out Dragapult, I brought out Glacier, but then he switched him out for Primarina. I of course then countered that with my Grass type and sent it flying, just like I did with his Ferrothorn, along with his Dragapult that came back into the fight. I used a couple of crunches on this Dusclops, and I had finally beaten the entire battle tower. Victory couldn't have tasted sweeter. Now that we've defeated the battle tower, it's time to make a badge case and take on some gyms. I found this grass gym earlier and decided to take it on. I immediately got into a battle with a trainer that also had level 100s. This guy had a bunch of interesting Pokemon like this Carvanine and this Decidueye. His team was also crazy strong, and I had to use some max revives. I genuinely think that every trainer here is much stronger than the top level ones in the battle tower. Now I'm not sure why I keep using Swampert first in these battles, but I guess it works. I should be using Cerulege more, but he can't actually stand his ground. Neither could my Arctozolt or my Glacier, who are ice types. I had to bring out Old Reliable to take care of the rest, since I knew he wouldn't disappoint. Before I took on more trainers, a message appeared saying an epic boss spawned, and when I found the guy, he was able to juke my ball. I tried multiple times, but he just kept slipping away. I had no choice but to accept defeat and turn on the trunk borders. Thankfully, he wasn't that hard to beat, and I was able to get his Megastone. After battling a few more trainers, another boss spawned, and this time it was a legendary. Legendary bosses are hard, but I beat it once before, so I wasn't afraid. Once I took him out, I actually got a Mind Plate from him. It's been so long since I've gotten a plate that I almost forgot about them. After fighting two bosses, I felt more than ready to take on this gym leader. His first Pokemon was a legendary, and I'm glad mine was too. He switched him out though for Ferrothorn, which wasn't a problem at all for Glastrier. Glastrier did have a problem though with its Breloom that absolutely demolished him. This guy took out both of my ice types, and that's when things got serious. I brought out my big boy to teach him a lesson, but he one-shot him while surviving on 0.4% HP. He even did massive amounts of damage to Arboliva before he put him into the grave. My Pokemon were dying, and it didn't help that this guy also had a Mega Evolved Venusaur. However, with the power of Max Revives, I got my Glastrier back into battle. I also brought my bird back to life for the second time to take down this Cradily. The last Pokemon looked terrifying, but stood no match against Arctozolt. And with that, I defeated the gym leader and got the grass badge. Next up was the water gym, and I felt pretty confident with this one since I had some good counters. The first trainer had this giant spider in a bubble, which he switched out after the first move. Zamazenta didn't do much in this fight, so I thought I might as well take out my ace. I took out a couple of Pokemon with Bolt Beak, but he didn't last long after that. My other ace was Arboliva, who was able to take out this Mantine, but then got wiped out after one attack. I tried doing the same to this Lobster, but it actually took 2 of my legendaries to end him. Keep in mind, this is only a grunt, and not the gym leader. I eventually had no choice but to revive Arctozolt to put an end to the situation. After that, I proceeded to the boss and felt a little uneasy about this after the last battle. Arctozolt was able to fry this bird, but got eaten by this scary looking fish. Arboliva took him out, but fell shortly after that. My 2 counters were gone, and this was not looking good. But I fought off his legendary with mine, and somehow won though. He kept switching out his Pokemon, and out came this giant catfish. While I was fighting it, another boss spawned, but this time, it was a Latias. It could despawn at any moment, so I had to end this battle quick. I used Arctozolt to wrap things up, and I got the water badge. This thing kept flying so fast that I ended up running to a Mesobiome to fight it. This guy was a level 150 legendary, and was probably the hardest boss I fought up until now. If I didn't have my legendaries, this battle would have probably been over. But thankfully it wasn't, and I ended up beating him, getting his Megastone and an Iron Plate. After that, I decided to head up north and spend some time in the snow biome. I found an igloo here and was excited to explore it. I found the secret hatch, and as I went down, I found a chest that had an ice plate. I'm not even close to getting all the plates, but at least I'm making good progress. After running around for some time, I eventually found another village and couldn't wait to take on the next gym. My team is pretty bad against ice types, but I'm sure I'll find a way. I still have a lot of gyms to get to, so I want to make this quick. In this first battle, I fought against this ice monkey, an ice bear, an ice dragon, an ice crab, and a woolly mammoth. My Swampert just barely took down the Mamoswine, which is kinda shocking since he's somewhat of a counter. Now it's time to take on the gym leader, and his first Pokemon was this beautiful Ninetales. He switched him out though for a penguin whose ice cube I knocked off of his head, and then switched him out for, of course, a legendary. I didn't worry too much though since I did have Ceruledge. He Mega Evolved a Glalie, but Ceruledge didn't care, and he eventually knocked out the remaining Pokemon one by one and got me the Ice Badge. After some time, I then stumbled upon this village that had too much pink for my taste. I found a Z Crystal just out in the open here, and an Arceus statue. It made me stop and wonder what type should I make him when I get him. Now as I was trying to find the gym, I found myself looking down at an Alakazam boss. This guy threw spoons all over the place, hitting my Pokemon and making pretty much all of them faint. However, my strat here was simple, and it was to use as many revives as possible. Once I defeated the legendary boss, I got a Draco plate. I had no idea where I was going to get that plate, so I'm glad I got one from him. After that, I took on the first trainer at the gym and was interested to see how my team would do against fairy types. I think it's going to be extremely easy considering I have an amazing counter, which is my legendary steel type. Turns out it was, and I had most of my Pokemon survive. Now as I took on the leader, I started one-shotting his Pokemon, but then he brought out a Xerneas. He also brought out Grimmsnarl, and I was just fascinated by how cool this guy's team was. The coolest one here though was this Rapidash who looked like he was taken straight out of My Little Pony. I fought him with my own pony though, and proved that mine was stronger. My pony was so strong that it just knocked everyone out within seconds and got me the fairy badge. While trying to find the next gym, I got lost in the jungle and swung on vines like Indiana Jones. I pretty soon found a temple here and thought I might as well explore it. I ended up finding a meadow plate here while getting bombarded with arrows. Just outside the temple was a giant septile. This guy was an ultimate boss, but I knew my cerulege had me covered. Shortly after that, I found another temple, and this time, I found an insect plate. I also found a toxic plate in the hidden chest. These temples for sure have the best loot. I took a break from exploring and went back home to organize my chests and make new armor. I bought a bunch of crystals and silicon and crafted neoplasma armor. I finally found the armor just right for me, and I think I'll keep this one for the rest of the video. Holy moly, it's Barney! This Kangaskhan was huge, and I think the baby was bigger than me. But honestly, I've gotten so strong to the point where bosses aren't a threat anymore. Now the next day, I arrived at this very western-like village that looked like it had seen its fair share of cowboys. I really gotta hand it to the people who made this mod, since they put so much detail in all of the village builds. I then found the gym and started doing my thing. I could already tell my Swampert was going to have a field day today. None of these Pokemon stood a chance against him. He even had a Mega Camerupt who couldn't do a single thing to my Mega. Now when I challenged the gym leader, he Gigantamaxed his Sandaconda and made my Swampert look tiny. He didn't stay that size forever though, and Swampert humbled him pretty quickly. He also had a Steelix and a Rhyperior that stomped my Icy Horse. His Crocodile was also pretty terrifying, but thankfully Zamazenta was on the case. The ultimate challenge for him though was the Zygarde that eventually transformed to his 100% form. However, Zamazenta was able to prevail, and I got the Himmin badge. As I ventured on to find the next gym, I found this odd structure in the desert. Judging by the rings around its frame, I'm guessing this is where we summon Arceus. In the near distance, I found another dojo, but I believe this one was for dark types. I remember being too weak to fight this tower, but now I feel more ready than ever. The tower progressively gets harder and harder, so I'll have to look out for that. This next trainer pretty much wiped out my whole team and put me in a tough spot, but I wasn't going to let this Scrafty mock me, so I made sure to put an end to him. I headed out of the dojo for a bit to fight this legendary boss. As I mentioned before, none of these scare me since I'm so strong now and I have a counter to everything. Now what surprised me was getting a zap plate from a ground type. Not sure how that makes sense, but I'll take it. I was feeling a bit cocky after that boss fight, but this next battle for sure humbled me. This giant worm took out a few of my Pokemon and I had to bring Swampert back to life just to beat him. He also had an Urshifu, who's basically the king of this tower and what the tower was made for. He also had a Nihilego who took out both of my legendaries. They were all level 120, so it made sense why this was probably the hardest battle I fought yet. His last Pokemon was another Ultra Beast who looked terrifying, but thankfully, Zamazenta was able to take care of him. It was all worth it though, because when I reached the top, I was rewarded with the Fist Plate and the Dread Plate. 2 more plates under our belt. After a few days of traveling, I reached a new town with big brick buildings, lampposts along the roads, a Melmetal statue, and even some bikes. Judging by the statue, I could tell I made it to the Steel Village. I was pretty excited to take on the gym considering I had a lot of steel counters. Cerulege might even take the whole gym himself. Now I thought that until he brought out an Empoleon who I completely forgot was a steel type. This guy also had some really cool Pokemon that I'm glad I could show off in this video. Now the one who gave me the most problems had to be this Corviknight. He took out Zamazenta and my Cerulege. He was a flying type though, so Bolt Beak did the job, but Arctozolt didn't last long after that. I had enough of this, so I brought out my Swampert to clean things up. He got burned by this legendary, but that didn't stop him, and I was able to get the mineral badge. I journeyed out of town and found myself a desert temple. I always end up blowing myself up here, so I made sure to be cautious. In the chests, I found an earth plate and a stone plate. We now have 16 plates in total. We're closing in on finishing our goals, so I thought I'd take a break and show you guys something cool. If you place a torch down under a full moon and right click your Pokemon with a carved pumpkin, you can change it to its Halloween skin. This only works for certain Pokemon, and they have to be in their final evolution as well. I used this trick on Sableye, who looked like an imp from hell, and I also used it on Meganium and Delphox, who look like ghosts. Once I catch more Pokemon, I'll be able to show you all of the skins, but for now, I'm happy with what I got. Now we have 2 gyms left to defeat, and for them, we have to go back to Hell. I took on the fire gym, and it was pretty obvious who I sent out first. The coolest thing this guy had was this Mega Charizard who took down my Swampert with him. This gym countered my team to an oblivion, so without Swampert, I'm basically done for. I fought this Blaziken with my Ceruledge, but he quickly switched out to his legendary and beat my Pokemon to the ground. I had no choice but to keep bringing back Swampert since he was my only hope. He did his absolute best and I was able to get the fire badge. Now the next and final gym was the Ghost Gym in the Soul Sand Valley. I made it all the way to the gym leader and was pleasantly surprised to see a Giratina as his first Pokemon. This guy was serious in guarding the badge, and I respect that. He also had a Mimikyu, who's basically the ghost version of Pikachu. His last Pokemon was a Gengar, who killed my Swampert and left me with just my Zamazenta. My wolf used everything he had to deal one final blow to this Gengar, helping us achieve our final badge. I finally completed my second goal of defeating every single Pixelmon gym. I also brought the last 2 plates from the shop, which cost me $150,000 each. With that, we now had all of our plates and all of our badges. I then got on a boat to travel to the chalice I found earlier. As soon as I arrived, I took out all 18 plates from my shulker box and started placing them in the golden cup. I kept drowning putting these plates in, but it was worth it seeing all these plates turn into colorful flames. The flames started circling around, getting closer to the cup, and it eventually gave me an Azure Flute. On our final day, I went back to the Spear Pillar and couldn't wait for what was about to happen next. If you guys were able to make it this far into the video, I greatly appreciate that, and I'd appreciate it even more if you left a like. Now I used the Azure Flute to summon the supreme being and mythical god of creation, Arceus. I instantly threw my Master Ball, and now I had the god of the universe under my command, completing the final goal in our 100-day challenge. I took him out of the ball to check him out, and even flew around with him for a bit. With all that said, thank you guys so much for watching. This was a large scale project of mine, and I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did in making it. I have so much planned that I want to show you guys soon, and I hope you look forward to it. As always, thank you for the love and support, and I will see you all next time.